Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to VC TV, the Venture Capital TV. As you can see, it's the Venture Capital TV from LATOKEN. So welcome speakers. Well, I have three speakers today, three new speakers, and Gary as well. Gary is here. Three new speakers who are going to talk about education tech, e-learning, and online school. Isn't that interesting? So before we deep dive into the speakers and the topic, which is very close to my heart, considering it's about education and the future of education, because education is the future of the country. Before we deep dive into that, I just want to like to introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of LATOKEN, and LATOKEN hosts VCTV, which is the venture capital TV platform where we connect people for networking, for collaborations, for connection, for funding, and whatnot. And basically, a bit about the history of VCTV. VCTV was born in March 2020. Actually, I'm wrong. February 2020, very fast after the pandemic hit the economy. So we switched our roadshows, our offline roadshows, where the goal was the same, to connect investors with the founders, to matchmake, help and grow, funding, collaboration. So we had to very fast move into an online platform because of the pandemic. But since then, it has grown in terms of community, in terms of viewerships, in terms of investor community, speakers, founders, whatnot. And I've been hosting since March 2020 because of just I started off once in a week, but now I host it every day, Monday to Friday, 8 p.m. Singapore, very fixed. So we have more than one shows as well in Asia. We have two shows in a day, also US as well, as you all know. So welcome to VCTV all over again. Today's panel is a very interesting topic, and I have two new speakers, and I would like to introduce them first. Sartech from Singapore. Hi, Sartech.
Hi.
Sartaj. Sorry, I know that you told me how to pronounce your first name. My apologies.
That's fine, no problem.
Sartaj from Singapore. Please introduce what you do in the company, a bit about the company, and your experience in the space. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm based in Singapore. I'm actually originally from Turkey, Istanbul, but I spent most of my adult life in Italy. So I've been around the world for quite a few years. And what do? I am a fund manager, advisor. I work with impact investing ecosystem. I build systems, sometimes ecosystems in different countries. So I'm very much active in all aspects of fund management and investments. And education has a big role in my life, partly because I have two young daughters who actually are studying. So education is part of our life. And I also have been very active as an investor in the education world, I'm in the advisory board of a number of business schools. So it's a theme that I've been very much familiar with over the years, and it's a pleasure being here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I know you rightly said, Sartej, like you with your kids, and obviously everybody goes to school, and education is a part of your life, on everyday's life. Thank you so much for those introductory words. Really appreciate it. Next, I have another speaker who's joined VCTV even for the first time. He's so excited because he's told me a number of times before we went live how excited he is to be on VCTV today. Chandra Shekhar from Chennai, India.
Thank you very much, Sunny, for having me here. It's such an great happiness, privilege to be part of this amazing panel. I mean, Gary is someone whom I've heard a lot, and such a great inspiration you are, Gary. And with Sartaj, I had an opportunity to speak just before the session. What an amazing profile! And Harsh is someone whom I've known, via my LinkedIn Connect. So, again, amazing, sort of a team out here. So once again, thank you for having me, here. Quickly about my background. My basic qualification is in finance and accounting. So I'm a chartered accountant with multiple other professional qualifications, both in finance and management areas. I started my career with ExxonMobil. From there, I moved to KPMG. And my last stint as an employee was with a UK-based multinational called Lournameet Group. And this group had brands such as Yardley of London, Finnis, and other well-known brands, which are quite popular in respective geographies. Now, I had phenomenal experience and exposure with this group because I met a lot of iBankers, venture capital funds, private equity guys, hedge funds, and a lot of law firms too. So it gave me tremendous experience in terms of how do you do a transaction, structure a transaction, conclude a transaction. I did almost 11 acquisitions and 4 divestments. And the last transaction I did was selling the group to Lee and Fung, which is a $1 billion Hong Kong-based group. Now, this is the interesting part. The entrepreneurial bug, bit me as early as 2011. And when this transaction was happening, I was actually super glad because, I was chancing my, ways by which I could become an entrepreneur. And once the transaction happened, I started a business called Anova, which began, in June 2013. So it's been more than 7 years. Quickly on Anova, Anova is an advisory firm, and our focus is on M&A, buy side or sell side, as the case may be. And we are also into fundraise. So we work with a lot of early stage companies, growth stage companies in terms of their fundraise, not just from VCs, but sometimes even from the corporate world, the strategic investors. We are sector agnostic and have completed assignments across various segments. Just to name few: manufacturing, FMCG, luxury goods, healthcare, hospitality, and one can never forget the technology-led, technology-enabled businesses. So those are some of the things that we have done. Now, in the last 24 months, I also became an angel investor, and I've invested now close to 20 startups. I'm also part of a couple of angel funds, and my investments currently are across segments. Of course, includes EdTech. It also includes health tech, fintech, food and beverages, FMCG, consumer tech. I've also invested in clean tech, regulatory tech, gaming, and I've not left even footwear. So, those are some of my angel investments. I'm so happy to be here. As I said, it's a great happiness to have such an amazing panel. So thank you once again.
Chandrasekhar, I've lost words now. What should I say? With the kind of diverse and wide range of experience and investment experience that you have, it's very much needed for our shows and also for the founders and entrepreneurs that we have, the kind of experience you have, and you're going to share the insights on this panel. And again, welcome to VCTV. I'm very grateful to have you on this panel today.
Thank you. And I have equally learned too, from all of you. So I'm equally grateful. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Next, I have Harsh again, who is joined us for the very first time on VCTV. Hi, Harsh. Welcome to VCTV. How are you today?
Hi, I'm quite well. Thank you so much for asking. It's a great opportunity here. I'm so glad to be here on this platform today.
So, Harsh, we are taking introductions. Yes, please go ahead.
Sure. So, yeah, coming to that, I think Chandrasekhar has already covered a lot of ground, and the profile he's come with is quite impressive. I'll keep it short. I'm basically a serial entrepreneur myself. Before I started with the entrepreneur journey myself, I was into the media and advertising industry. I worked with brands like Cadbury's, 20th Century Fox, Axis Bank. So I was basically handling the media strategy for these brands. I did that for about 8 years, moved to my hometown, started my first startup, which was into a food delivery based kitchen. We were like a cloud kitchen, but a very small space in Nasik. We had 4 kitchens across Nasik, and we would have a just-in-time inventory kind of a ordering where our customers order one in advance, and we will make as per order. From there, I started my second startup, which was into education space. We made a platform, a space for education, communication for schools, students, parents, and principals. That was the platform we worked on. I started with 2 schools, about 3,000 parents, and by the end of it, we were across 48 schools. We got acquired in early 2019, around Jan 2019, we got acquired. And since then, I've been actively participating into IB profile investment banking, started with helping a couple of friends raise funds. And that's how my IB profile started. I joined AHA about in December last year, where I started with the function of venture partner, where I was taking care of Maharashtra and Nasik to be very specific. My expertise obviously being from the edtech space as well as IoT and AI. So any startup which usually comes to AHA, I am actively involved in evaluating those startups so that we put them through, and if it goes through, then investors also benefit from the curation we have done. Uh, I'm also equally, interested and excited about incubation accelerators. I'm participating quite extensively with three incubators. One is based out of Singapore, one is based out of Pune, and one is based out of Mumbai. So the startup journey is, I mean, because I've seen both the sides of the table, that's why the journey is something which I spend a lot of time with the founders, understanding how they've come their long way of, from starting with an idea to raising funds. And that's, I think, where I'm adding a lot of value. I'm working with 16 startups right now. Most of them are in India, but about six are based out of Singapore, US, and Ukraine. So that's from my side. Thank you so much.
Oh, fantastic, Harsh. Really, really diverse again, a variety of experience. And I really love to have people with. I mean, I love everybody, everyone on my panel. But you are new, first time on VCTV, and you are deep dive into education. You started off with education, schools, and everything. So it's just like very good to know. I was having a discussion with Chandra Shekhar. Well, India has so many schools, so many education center. I know for a fact so many schools, so many tuition classes, like, springing up every now and then. Education is a big, big part of our lives in India. I know that for a fact. So that's why this topic is very close to my heart, as I always say. And all as parents, everybody, and education is a part of our life. Thank you so much, Harsh, as well for the introduction. And yes, I know about the Singapore farm that you're talking about. Thank you
Right,
so
right.
much. Small world. Last but not least, Gary. Hi, Gary. Welcome back on VCTV. How are you
Hello,
doing, by the way?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great as usual.
Good to see you today. So, anyhow, it's great to be here. I'm just a country boy from Pennsylvania, so it's great to be here with all these amazing people. So, anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler, serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, which is a company I started 4.5 years ago with a billionaire, David Yang, out of Silicon Valley. I love artificial intelligence. I've written 107 articles now. So I went over my goal for the year was 100 for 1 year. I have 2 books coming out on AI. Love artificial intelligence. I go around the world seeking the best AI companies from Africa, from India, Russia, wherever, US. And what we do is we curate them. We believe there are really 3 stages of a startup. One is they go through acceleration to get their product market fit and MVP. 2 is it's really they get regional dominance, wherever that is, India, Russia, Europe. But then what do you do next? Stage 3 is hard, especially during the pandemic. And I started 2 of the top accelerators. So GVA, and also Skolkovo Startup Academy. But what we find is at the 3rd stage, it's really hard. How do you get out there to create a unicorn? Everybody talks about it, right? Unicorn, unicorn, unicorn. But what is the 3rd step? The 3rd step is a lot about connections in Silicon Valley. It's a lot about trust. And it's lots about operational expertise. So what we said is, what if we take some of the best people in the world and basically build them on to these startups that can really dominate their space and take them out to the rest of the world. So we're Silicon Valley based. We're in Santa Clara, California, and also in Palo Alto. And our goal is to be able to take those companies, shape them like an amazing piece of clay, and make an incredible Rodin sculpture out of them, essentially. So, put that final touch on them. And we've been pretty successful doing it, and we love it. So if there's startups out there from anywhere, any place that have something and they really have the right spirit, the right time, and the right team, that's what we do. We help them go out. So thank
Fantastic,
you.
Gary.
I'm an investor too, so I'm involved
Yes.
in a $100 million fund, and we have our private money in a fund, and also I started a $10 million seed fund that's several of them are fully deployed, but we love investing also.
Yes, Gary, just to add on to Country Boy thing, I mean, everybody's a fan of yours, by the way. Everybody,
I appreciate it. I'm not worthy though. I'm just a country boy for real. Right? So, but it's great to be here. I love it. It's great to see you, Sunny, and Carol's here somewhere. So it's great to see all the new folks too. So Harsh, Sartech, Shekhar. It's great.
you pronounced it very nicely, actually. Thank you, Gary. So, yeah, we all set with the introductions of our speakers for the panel today. I'm really excited, as usual, and this today's topic is very much, again, very close to my heart. I would like to start with Sataj, who's just joined us for the first time. Take us through what happened in 2020 in the space, especially you live in Singapore, and I don't think Singapore. I don't know about the private. I think, yeah, sorry, I know about the private schools as well. None of the schools were um, in lockdown as much as India. I guess India, all the schools are still, I think, closed, shut down. But in Singapore, the schools are open. If you're talking about Singapore, but globally, generally, I think everybody sort of went online for education. So
Yeah.
let's start with Taj, over to you with your opening remarks for the topic.
Well, I think we just have to look at the sort of education sector as a whole to sort of comment on it. Now, education is one of those sectors that for many years it was actually quite immune to disruption, partly because it was actually riding on a very high wave of increasing population, especially in the developing parts of the world and mostly in Asia and elsewhere, with incredible demand for education. And most the educational institutions relied heavily on beefing up their facilities and their physical facilities and trying to invest as much as money into brick and mortar for many years. And that system, not only in terms of, big expenditures around building of facilities, but it relied heavily on faculty administration, a lot of other perks around, how to, especially private schools, how to attract students based on services that they created over time. This inflated the whole sector into a very high cost and low efficiency spiral for many years. And this is true for almost any part of the world. And then there was actually relatively little money in the public schools, and public schools in most cases could not compete with, in terms of facilities, with the private institutions. And then over the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of ventures coming into the market, especially partly on the higher education part, trying to give online and scalable, far-reaching solutions, the Coursera's, the edX's of the world. And this was increasing. But it did not trickle down. A lot of the universities were caught off guard by the pandemic because they had to, in a very almost makeshift fashion, switch from typical, education based on brick and mortar and proximity to faculty, classroom education into digital education. And that shift, I think, I'm sure that they learned a lot, and there's no way going back. I think we're going to see a lot of hybrid education coming into force in the next 5 to 10 years and becoming sort of a point of reference. But it actually showed the vulnerabilities of these higher education institutions, because they were still asking for a very hefty price but students were basically sitting using Zoom as we're using right now, and not really getting the service or the type of education that they were paying for. And this is across the border happening everywhere. When you go out into the the high schools and even the K-12 institutions, pretty much same thing happened, except that it depended on where you were, what type of income bracket you were in, what type of school they were in, and forcing students out into remote education whereby infrastructure was not present in most cases, created inequalities, unbelievable inequalities. I'm an impact investor and I work for Purpose Venture Capital. So, it's a very important aspect, how does technology create inequality and how are you addressing it? And one of the biggest inequalities that was created over the last 7-8 months is that those who had access to Wi-Fi, had a decent home where they could study actually by themselves in front of a computer would benefit from digital education. But those who did not have access to any of the technologies that would give them a chance to do remote learning or sit in crammed houses with little possibility, they suffered a lot. And we're going to see that trend. I've seen the numbers, for example, those who are missing out on access to education over the course of their lifetime are going to, because of these phenomena over the last year, and I think we're going to well into next year, they'll be I think missing out 6 to 7% of income over the course of their lifetime. So there's a huge inequality that's happening, and that needs to be addressed. So I'm just going to finish here. So Sonny, if anybody wants to intervene, do you?
Sorry, Sartej, I just want to say, because I was losing you from in between, so I was just wondering everything. I mean, it's not me. So no, I see you fine. So actually, I was about to ask you a very good a question on a very good point about impact investments, because you invest, as you rightly said, on elaborating and extending on that particular topic. Because we know Singapore, we are all well. I mean, generally, population has access to 100% education, be it private schools or public schools. What about which countries do you actually focus on in terms of impact investments in education?
Well, right now, in terms of impact investing, for a while, I was managing a fund that invested in India, Pakistan, in Myanmar, and in Cambodia. And I also have been quite active in Turkey and in the Middle East. And right now, I'm evaluating a number of different education related investments in Malaysia and in the Philippines. So, I've sort of seen it across the border in different countries. Impact investing, what is impact investing? For those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically is balancing financial gain with social and environmental gain, and making sure that these three pillars actually happen at the same time, and education is a very big aspect of it, because actually you can generate income, but you're also doing a social good. So you have to be very mindful of how that social good is, in a way, is defined and measured. And this is very important. So this is, I think, my view that, as I said, education is very important, a big pillar. Absolutely. But you have to create the conditions for it to be equitable.
Absolutely, it should be accessible to everyone. Education. Thank you so much, Sartej, for those opening remarks. Really powerful and impactful as well. Next, I have Shekhar, and please help with the opening remarks for the topic, because you are deep down into education sector. So
it is true, that lockdown has been there on the schools, on the colleges for a long time. It's there even now on a test basis, some of the schools, especially the classes from 9th to 12th, they've tried to open in some of the states. Colleges are still closed. I come from Chennai, where we have IIT Madras. They tried opening up, but still, there are some cases, that were there. So it's still a lockdown situation. But that's about the lockdown. Now we are speaking about EdTech. And I think when it comes to India, it's the flavor of the season, right? I mean, so much of noise and voice, EdTech is making. It's like the golden era.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever we speak about EdTech, we are all, pleasantly, taken for a huge surprise. But I'll borrow what Sartech said. I think education in particular, and probably, out of their education, I think EdTech is kind of immune to such situations that we are facing. So it has always been big, I think. EdTech has always been big. Probably, pandemic has made it noisier. Probably we are hearing a lot, because of the pandemic, So whenever, we discuss, with our clients, or let's say some of the other businesses, we use this mantra saying, survive, revive, thrive. But when it comes to EdTech, it's unbelievable. It's survive, revive, and then prosper. Because that's what is happening, I mean, the businesses here are prospering big time. In fact, the EdTech companies no more believe in survival of the fittest. They say it's the survival of the fastest. So whoever, is sort of, able to clinch out there, I mean, you get the highest reward. And I was just wondering why is the case. So just before the session, I did discuss with you, I think there is this FOMO with the parents, the fear of missing out, because when it comes to India, parents in India, they're willing to spend disproportionate amount for the betterment of the children. I mean, take me as a parent, we also do that. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sure some of the panel members would agree with me. But I also will tell you what is interesting about EdTech. I think EdTech is all about customer. What I mean by that is there is a user, but there is also a customer. So the user could be the children, could be, the one, who is actually using it, but who is funding it? It's the parent. So I think you have to ensure that both the UX, the user experience, and the CX, the customer experience, that has to be kept in mind. And I think that's what has successfully happened with, some of the EdTech companies, because I've always told myself when it comes to any sort of a learning, it's an experience. Everything else is information. So I think, if the experience is great, if it is very, very experiential, I think that's where, we all stand out. And no wonder, in 2020, I mean, the investments were, north of $2 billion, which the EdTech companies got. I mean, close to 100, startups, they got almost close to $2 billion. If you compare with last year, it was only 500 million. So I think that's a bonanza. That's like a windfall that's happening out here. And I think it's happening, because of the fact that, number one, the universities, the colleges, the schools, they're quite nimble and agile. They were able to embrace the technology much more faster. And probably even the EdTech companies, were able to seamlessly, sort of ensure that, the services were offered in a way that it was not hitting too much, on their cost, or probably even in terms of ensuring, that, it was given in, for the purpose that the institution, wanted. So I think that is something, that is very interesting about India. And I've always felt, that is one of the reasons why EdTech companies are doing so well, because they understand the customer well. At the same time, they also understand what is required for the market. I'm going to stop there so that others can pitch in here.
No, Chandrasekhar, very good point that you highlighted. One point I really want to say that we have the users, which is the children, and then you have the sponsors, who are the parents.
Exactly.
That's I mean, impact is twice over there. And also knowledge, I mean, education is just knowledge without an experience is just knowledge. Very rightly said. Great highlights there, Chandrasekhar might say. My apologies again for stumbling on your name. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Next, I have Harsh. Harsh, let's start with you, with your opening remarks, please.
Well, I think Chandrasekhar was quite bang on with the whole scenario of how Indian startup ecosystem in education has really transformed. So back then, when in 2014, when actually, when I started my first startup, or even that ecosystem was developing, startup by itself was comparatively a new concept, because we just had, big names like Flipkart coming in 2009, and then eventually it built up. But if you observe Asia as a market, the DNA of startups lies in how you solve the problem locally. So while we have Uber for the world, we still have Ola in India, right? So that does great numbers. So the DNA of startups in Asian countries is tremendously dynamic. So how you look at solving that issue during that time gets maximum mileage. So, as you are all aware, we had a big transition in terms of currency demonetization. So during that time, fintech really went off the roof because there were people who never used internet started making internet transactions. So that's the push which we were forced to do. But I think India as a population transitioned quite well. So like I said,
Yeah.
the DNA factor of not just startups, but even people to adjust to new normal is quite part of our lives. So that you easily pick up certain things or are forced to pick up certain things.
Yeah.
Coming to why I think this pandemic has been, just as what demonetization was for fintech, it just went off the roof. Right? So because the opportunity grew to that level where people just were forced to change their models. I work with around 200 government schools. Uh, while the government would support, in millions of dollars financially, I had seen majority of the schools in rural India where they were given fiber optic internet, but they didn't know how to use internet. So the rat was eating the fiber optic, virus. That level of
Wow.
nothing just seen.
Seriously.
But from there, I've seen technology being used maximized. So I've recently I went last month to one of the very very rural parts of Maharashtra. To the extent there is no road to reach that school, but they are geofenced. They have classes taken from Delhi. Their exams are on WhatsApp, and the evaluation happens on Zoom. So that's the transition we are seeing. So, I was mind boggled. I was wondering how this happened, that the execution was something phenomenal. So I went back and I started speaking to my mentors, a couple of them I'm sure you guys know. So one was from a very well-known fintech, one was from education. I started understanding how were we forced to make this transition. So if you see technologically, India has been quite well or doing quite well, but usage of technology penetration is still low. To give you perspective, so there's data which was available in the government site. So smartphones used by rural households where the child goes into the government school was only
Mhm.
29% before pandemic hit us.
Right.
Post pandemic, that 29% went to 57%. So that tells you that the parents, which like Chandrasekhar said, it was the enablers, the people who are going to provide
Yeah.
that
Yes.
are still of those guys who said doesn't make a difference if I can't afford a cell phone which is just 2,000 rupees. I don't care. I need to do this for the education, right? So that transition in having an outlook towards education, I think that's a bigger change. So while we talk about Zoom classrooms and everything, if the enablers really believe that using technology is going to change my child's future, I think we have the edtech sector has really been very very successful.
I mean, it's mind-boggling, Harsh, to hear what just you said. Like, remote
Yeah,
village of Maharashtra, WhatsApp
right.
is used for education. I mean,
Yeah. So, in fact, coming to the next point. So, while I see this is happening everywhere, but if you look at, the transaction, the deals which have happened around, just in the crowded space. You talk about Byju's, White Hat Junior. Those guys are still talking to the category A or category B audience. But the education sector, if you see, comes from rural India because that's where the majority of Indian population is. So while we actually the reason why we were there in that village because we were awarding an innovation. Now look at how simple the innovation was. Now this guy realized all the schools are shut. No one is going to provide us with any kind of support, but
hmm,
students want to learn. Now
yeah,
every village in India particularly have this one big microphone set in the center of the village. Village is about
microphone.
50, yeah, huge microphones, so like speakers,
Okay.
where they would put on news, any announcement to the village. Now, what this guy did is he had a smartphone, and using a couple of wires, he connected that smartphone with 6 villages, and he started taking lectures on his microphone through his mobile. So he would talk about geography one day, he would talk about science the next day, and children will just sit in every village under that one microphone, one big speaker, and understand what is he speaking. Now that
Wow.
innovation needs to be supported more, fund more, or taken to.
Yeah.
So now, if you look at business, it's scalable, right? It can happen to every village in India.
Yeah.
What does he require? He requires some amount of funding for technology. It does not really require that much. So we wanted to support him in terms of, innovative idea, government funds. So he eventually did get funded, but I'm saying that space is still neglected. So that's
Yeah.
where Indian innovation is happening. So that's my
Yeah.
opinion.
I mean, something that I learned you very much new in terms of education space. How innovative can India be, rural India, in terms of
Absolutely.
adopting technology and still reaching out to the rural masses, the children in the villages when it comes to education? This is really, really
Absolutely.
mind-boggling and enlightening as well. I mean, for the audience as well who may not know about this. Thank you so much, Harsh, for sharing those insights with us and of yours. Excellent. Gary, over to you. I mean, we've spoken about a lot of rural impact-based investments into education. Let's hear it from you then.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, look at where we are today, how the world has fundamentally changed. I mean, if you asked us a year ago how many people would be online being educated around the world because of the pandemic, it would have been a very small number. But we've had to digitally shift education over that period of time and dramatically increase the depth and breadth of education. So, where are we today? So we've got the fun, keep it simple, stupid. That's my thing. We've got kids online that need to be entertained. We've got to have more immersive experience for the educational process today. We also got to have things like cross learning, the capability to be able to collaborate and share. And at the same time, look at a teacher's role compared to what we were a year ago. So in many parts of the world, the teachers doesn't see the student other than online, right? And they've got to manage a classroom online. So imagine the kind of tools and the way they have to think, as Steve Jobs said, think differently. So, the revolution and this explosion has finally taken place. And it's given us a chance to do things in a much different way and also to spread out who can be educated. Think about the opportunities. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are. It matters only that you have access to technology, which is another issue that we need to address because it's got to be fair across the board. But I believe that's changing too. So we're up on it. I'm looking at, if you look at what's happening today, a lot of it's happening across multiple vertical markets. So in terms of education, hyper personalization, being able to have personalized programs, well, hyper personalization goes across multiple verticals too. It's the same thing in e-commerce. What are we looking at? How to make it better? How can we buy things better? How can we educate better? Artificial intelligence. Think about being able to have multiple choice tests. Let's keep it simple. Have an artificial intelligence that already does the grading for you and then can adjust curriculums based on that particular student and where they are in the learning process. We didn't have that a couple of years ago. We do have those kind of things taking place now. So it's an exciting time. So for me, think about the immersive experience too, using AR and VR.
Yeah.
Sonny, we can travel. Any kid right now that's online can travel to Africa and enjoy looking at like magnificent animals and to be able to understand what their lives are like.
Yeah.
To travel, if I don't know if you've been on Apple and some of their interactive books, but to really have these incredible books that have experiences, they've got videos, they've got the ability to be able to open them up and look at pictures and basically the scenes come to life. So let's talk about the Sahara. What does it look like? It opens up and there's a video of the Sahara. Now imagine being able as a child to be able to be immersed in that particular scene. How much better is that learning experience? Places you may never see, to walk around the Leaning Tower of Pisa, to be able to walk anywhere in the world, in Moscow, to be able to look at pyramids and Giza. So that's what's happening. It's really changing the dimension. It's gone from a one-dimensional to three-dimensional world for education. And I'm really encouraged by it. I think it's incredible, actually. It also gives us the opportunity to be able to change not only the way people learn, the amount that people learn, and how fast they can learn and adjust it. So we're excited about it. We're excited about the opportunities.
Absolutely. AR, VR, obviously another level of technologies that we are talking about when we, in India, still people, I mean, moved from offline to WhatsApp education in terms of giving exams on WhatsApp. That's quite incredible for me to know that WhatsApp being used as a medium of education. Yes, fantastic. We have a few more minutes left. I just quickly want to ask Sartaj and the rest of the speakers to share some recent successful use cases in terms of investments that you've done. I'd like to start with Sartaj first.
Yes, I think one part that I found extremely interesting is what's happening in the corporate learning space, and that's something that we haven't touched base in, because that's a very big chunk of the education. We've talked about, K-12, we've talked about higher education, we've talked about rural to urban education, but actually there's a lot happening in terms of education as a part of a reskilling process within corporate settings. And what I've seen, for example, I have been an angel investor in a company that completely tried to bring in elements of technology and elements of human touch together using the power of technology. So technology enables you to actually create learning pieces much faster. It enables you to customize learning. It enables you to actually from any place within your work environment or your home, you can have access to any type of skill that you want to develop. So technology enables that. But what happens is that what's the missing link is that if technology is not supported by a very thorough mentoring process, it doesn't get interiorized. And so basically they brought in elements of human mentoring, but again, technology is utilized there, whereby you match people for the skills that they lack with people who have those skills so that they can actually learn from each other. So my challenge, and that's just something that I said, I think technology opens a lot of doors and it accelerates the process. But if technology is used just to enhance technology, learning may not happen. Experience is part of it. Sharing is another part of it. You have to find ways of using AI and virtual reality so that people actually learn from each other, from peers in work environment, from people who have better skills than you do as a mentoring opportunity. How do you bring that together and how do you capture that learning is the biggest challenge. And this is one of the places that I have over the years worked in. And I think blending the human and the technology is going to be the next frontier. And again, we're going to use technology to do that.
Yeah, great point there, Sartaj. I really agree that this skill set gap, it's very, how to put it? I mean, everybody is not at the same skill set, even though in a team working on in the same team, as you rightly said. So if technology and human interaction can bring, shorten that skill set gap, is an amazing thing in terms of corporate learning and education. Really like that point, Sartaj. Thank you so much. Next, I have Chandra to take the same question.
Awesome, yeah. So I'll quickly, give examples of a couple of investments I've done, and it's very interesting, what Sartaj said, and then you also alluded to. So this is a business, which is an AI video bot assisted platform. So we're discussing about bots and the human. So there is technology and human intervention. But what's happened here is that this is a business where the candidates, the students, they can prepare for interviews. And more importantly, they can get the right jobs or the sort of right placements they want in the institution they're looking for. And there is also a referral based, sort of employment that can happen. Now, why I love this, startup is because employability is a huge issue in the country. And we speak about education, but look at the employability, that is there in this country. It's a huge issue. So this app, it is basically assisting, with video bot libraries where you've got mentors or experts. So these mentors are experts, they give snippets and they record it. And these mentors and experts, they are from organizations like MasterCard, Google, JP Morgan, KPMG, Reliance, Wipro, L&T, the best of, the world, Procter and Gamble. So what happens here is that those snippets, again with AI, as it becomes intelligent, the bot becomes intelligent, and the sort of aspirants, they get the right sort of answers, and that helps them, either placed in the organization that they want of their choice, or even when they're thinking of a higher education, the right sort of institution. The second one is even more interesting, and this is something I love. So here is a business which is basically assisting the parents, and what they do is they're inculcating the concept of money management in kids. So let me just explain that. So which means they're discussing about savings as a habit.
Yeah.
They're bringing a social responsibility to the kids, saying that if you do certain chores, if you do certain activities, here is a way by which you can earn. Yeah. And more importantly, they're making it gamified, interactive, so that it's extremely, interesting for children. Right. But now comes the best part. When I speak about money, it is actually not physical money, it's a virtual currency, which means I, as a parent, based on my sort of status, I can decide what that one coin stands for. Could be as low as a 10 rupee or could be as high as even a 500 rupee. But that's something that I decide, which means the money as a, money as a measure is not the important thing. It's about, how well you're able to train the children to truly understand, that there is a responsibility that they need to inculcate. More importantly, children, if they, at an early age, if they're able to understand the concept of money, if you catch them young, I think there are a lot more ways by which, they could become better citizens. They could become, better in terms of, how they look at money. It's not something, that you just need to earn for, your living, but something, that you look, in a much more bigger way. And probably if India is the third largest in terms of entrepreneurship, I think this would be an amazing thing, in terms of inculcating this habit as young as possible. So this is the other startup which I'm super excited about, completely technology driven and an EdTech opportunity. And to add to Harsh's point, there's also fintech here because we're talking about money.
Great, Chandrasekhar, great insights. I wish I had, in schools when I was growing up, I had a subject on money management.
Same here.
Really, we never had one, but we understand the importance of inculcating, as you said, that at the primary stage when you are, starting from coins, investments, little investments that change your life as a child. Very great points. I'd love to know more about this startup from you, actually.
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much. Next, I have Harsh. Harsh, over to you, please, with the same question.
Great. So since the pandemic hit us, since I think probably March or April, the concentration of startups coming to us at AHA, they have been primarily from, more than anything in the education space, but not just education per se, it's also training or harping your skills. That kind of platform was number one. Second, obviously, was, health tech, pharmaceuticals also was a big space which came to us. And third were obviously enablers. So AI, ML was also huge. Automatically, what happened during pandemic, the benchmark of evaluation suddenly changed. So we looked at, about 1 million active users on a monthly basis, which was very good pre-COVID, turned out to be average post-COVID because, everyone was doing great numbers. That's why you had to put extra efforts to evaluate in terms of how the business plan is going to grow, which was a big issue because we did not have, the earlier benchmark we had was one investment we exited in 2018 was a startup called Testbook. So, we had that EdTech benchmark with us. We were doing one excellent, case study was, again, something what Chandrasekhar mentioned was into, so the training, the whole platform works on improving your skills so that you can get a perfect job. So it is aligned to the job description from, let's say, a banking sector, and they will give you diploma certifications against that. So the idea is you have to be employable ready and the companies will directly hire you. So the platform was very interesting because, so let's say if I've done my graduation and I'm looking for a bank job in a very reputed, let's say an MNC bank, instead of going through a normal process and telling the interviewer telling me that I'm lacking in these skills, if I'm told about that in advance and I train myself, I'm saving companies time as well as me as an
Right.
individual. I'm getting better skills. So we thought that was great space. About a year back, we did one round about 1.5 million, and then we are doing one more round very recently. So that transition has been good. So in fact, looking for new startups was as challenging, but earlier existing startups which we had on the platform, they got multiple rounds, which was very interesting. Personally, when I'm opening my own portfolio, I would want to work on social impact based education. That's why I'm evaluating one startup currently. Now that startup comes with the virtue of free education for all. So they have got about 7.5 million users on a daily basis, where they get everything free. They have been doing this for the past 6 years. Now they want to reach a level where they want to have learners also on board. Earlier it was only information based, where you and me could go and download and access information and have a portfolio of your own education. But they are trying to bridge, the gap by getting educators also on board. So I'm working with them currently. We've got a couple of interests, but this is some space which I think is going to be very, very lucrative in the coming years, where education as an impact fund would be very interesting.
I totally agree. Education as an impact fund. I mean, as much as it's going to be free, but again, it's like creating an impact is one thing. Also, for startups, it becomes very essential to be making revenues. Because
Absolutely.
they are burning cash. So it's very important. That's like a catch-22 situation. But yes, that's about it. Thank you, Harsh, for sharing those insights as well. I mean, AI is doing wonders in the space of education, and education itself is doing wonders in 2020. I can see so many innovative products emerged because of the pandemic. WhatsApp being used as a means of education. That's never heard of pre-COVID, actually. Gary, over to you.
Yeah, so can you say the question one more time? Sorry about that. I had a.
Yeah, and the recent investments and successful use cases that you can share with our audience today.
Yeah, I mean, the situation. So again, we're in artificial intelligence, and we're looking at how we can develop technology like AR and VR that can be adapted to the educational experience. So we look at the technology to be used in multiple vertical markets, whether it's med tech, whether it's EduTech, wherever it is, manufacturing, et cetera. So where we're particularly interested is AR and VR. And of course, the testing part of it, I have a company called eva.ai, which does remote workforce management. And we founded it, I guess, 5 years ago now. It seems like forever, but it's hard to believe. But using those same technologies and to be able to adapt them for the classroom. So that's where it's really interesting for me. And I'm really interested I wrote an article called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True, the democratization of opportunities. And I believe this has given us that. And from my standpoint, any types of technologies that can be used to be able to enhance the experience, a hyper-personalized experience, are investments that we make or we're involved in. So it's not just ed tech, it goes across the board, right?
Yeah.
It's that. So, and I wrote another article called Transportable AI Models. It's the same kind of thing. So we're investing across the board. Some of them are applicable to EduTech. Some of them aren't. Some are AR, VR, of course, artificial intelligence, optimization, be able to tailor learning experience for the kids. Really interesting from my standpoint, but it's not just the kids, right? It's across the board. Everybody's got the problem. University students have the problem. How can I, if I'm studying to be a doctor, how can I have those kind of in hospital experiences as a doctor? I have one company called now Skill Cup, and Skill Cup is a company that goes down through and understands, how do I train? If I'm, again, a part of education, how can I go down and train people to be able to keep their skills sharp when they're remote employees? How do I engage them in the experience? How can I gamify it? How can I enhance that learning experience and make them feel part of the team? So so Skill Cup's one of them, but again, ours is really general across the board, where they can be applied in a whole lot of different ways.
Absolutely. Great insights, Gary. As again, if we're refocusing on corporate education and skill set. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights today. I really love the panel considering we have new speakers and very new insights coming from a country like India, Singapore, US, and globally, generally globally speaking. So that's very enriching for me, and I'm sure for our audience as well. Let's take closing remarks considering the time. I'll start with Chandra Shekhar first.
So they say, you know, Sunny, that if you torture data long enough, it'll confess to anything. So that's true about the EdTech also in India. If you take the education market size, it's almost $120 billion, but the EdTech is hardly, you know, inching towards $2.8 billion. So which means we are, you know, discussing less than 3% of the education market itself. So I think it's a long way to go when we speak about EdTech in this country. Yes, it has done, you know, some greater, you know, benefits, you know, given in the current situation, but I think it's a long way to go. If you ask me personally, you know where I would, you know, want to see a change in the EdTech, you know, sort of segment that we are in. I think one of the mindset that has to change, you know, for students across ages, because as you know, Gary rightly said, I think all of us, you know, have to keep learning, right? It's a continuous education. So one of the mindset that has to change is that education does not end with a graduation or a post-graduation, or let's say even a professional qualification.
Yeah,
I think we have to think, you know, it's a lifelong journey.
absolutely.
So how do, you know, some of these education companies, EdTech companies, you know, they are evolving to ensure that that sort of, you know, a continued, you know, sort of benefit is given. You know, that is, I think, is very, very relevant. And I think the second is, I wish, you know, it's not grade driven and more of a goal driven. Now, I know that this country has brought something called the National Education Policy, and I hope it's not grade driven and goal driven, but, you know, it has to still, you know, act and pave out, you know, the way it is. And I think, to me, you know, the biggest challenge is not about the smartphone, which even Harsh said, you know, because I think we have 600 million, you know, smartphones across in a population which is like 1.3 billion. But I think the bandwidth, I think that's a huge issue in this country. So when we speak about technology, I think the bandwidth, you know, has to, you know, really improve. And finally, if I have to add something, some of the placement and skilling institutes, they always take pride saying that, no, we have done the placement, we have done all this. But I guess somewhere, you know, they also, you know, sort of come across and say, I think we got you to think differently. And because you thought differently, you know, you are in a position where you are. And I think that if that happens, I think that would be great for education. That would be great for EdTech. That would be, you know, my sort of
very good points. But I think education, grade driven and goal driven, is a long way to happen. I think it's a long way to go. And it's not only in India. It's not only in India. It's actually everywhere. But again, you are very rightly pointed out there. And we always think about that, right? But who knows when is that going to happen?
And let me also thank you. A great way to moderate, Sunny. I mean, I just love this platform. Very unique experience for me because it's my first time. But more important, I think you're trying to bring, you know, people from various parts of the world together. I mean, I just loved, you know, the perspectives which each shared. And I think there is a capability that you're helping us to exchange our thoughts. I think that's truly brilliant. It's a great platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra Shekhar, for those remarks and feedback about VCTV. That's what we love to hear. I mean, that's where we get you know, improve ourselves. Thank you so much. Sartech, over to you with your closing remarks and VCTV feedback.
Yes, we are definitely on the sort of onset of a big revolution in the way people learn, but also in the way people behave and in the way people actually consume. It's part and parcel of a big shift in, you know, interacting with technology and perfecting it further. But I always bring it to the equity part of it, you know, equitable, you know, how many people have access to it, and how is that access is guaranteed, and over time, well, you know, what factors to really get a say in who gets what, who benefits from what. I mean, there is a democratization process through technology, but at the same time, we've seen that democratization is still at the expense of some people who benefit from it more and others much less. And especially with the pandemic, what we're saying is that there are going to be about 400 million people in Asia which are going to fall below the poverty line. Because they don't have access to work, they don't have access to basic needs. you're not going to solve that with technology easily. You have to have public policy. You have to have, redistribution of wealth. How is that going to be addressed? So, yes, education is definitely going to benefit in the first run from this big impetus towards um, technology. But then what's going to determine the efficacy of it then is who's going to access to it and who's going to have the means to actually benefit from it. And that's, I think, something that we should not forget.
Yeah, very much agree with you. It's the government. What's your feedback about the VCTV? Sataj, what do you think? What's your feedback about VCTV, the format?
Oh no, absolutely, man. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to have people that I would never maybe cross roads because they live in different parts of the world. But Harsh and Gary and Chandra, Shekhar, I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm going to come and bug you guys on the education
There you
sector.
go.
So the VCTV gives me this possibility to actually reach out to you, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, great words of bug you guys. Thank you so much, Sataj. Harsh, what's your closing remarks and feedback about VCTV?
I would like to, take Gary's word ahead of, how it runs across the board. Anyone who comes, decides to get into edtech today, I think disruptive innovation needs to be, I think, highly focused on. Uh, while we have different matrices at looking at how a startup is doing, but how easily it is approachable, how easily it is executable. At the same time, the cost factor. Not everyone's going to afford a laptop and a Zoom login, right? It's the way it's going to be. But all those aspiring entrepreneurs trying to start their own edtech, I would like to tell them, don't just look at one crowded space of schools. Look beyond that. Look across all the education patterns we have, which is going to create value in the long run. The biggest problem which I think can be explored more is, like other business and sectors we have, education has not yet become asset light. There's a lot of dependencies on content, on tutors. If you try to make that solution quite handy, I think it is got a long way to go. As it is, we have seen that industry is going quite well. I mean, thanks to Zoom, we are here today.
Yeah.
On a different platform, it would have been almost impossible for me to be here or meet everyone. But yeah, I think disruptive innovation is something which I think is going to happen, or is something which the entrepreneurs need to focus well on. Coming to VCTV, I'm so glad I accepted that invitation. To be very honest, I could not really go through too many episodes in the past, but I was pleasantly surprised now that I have fantastic 3 to 4 more colleagues to add to my list. More than happy to be here and always be in touch. Thank you so much for this.
Great, Harsh. Good to hear that, those closing remarks and feedback about VCTV. And we're going to have you back on the panels, and these speakers, some of them are going to bug you as well. Gary, over to you with your best moments of VCTV.
Best moments. Every morning I get to see you, Sonny. You know what I mean? It's like the sunshine.
Right.
I don't know what to say. It's great. No, there's a lot of great moments. I mean, I've met some incredible people. I met Richard Branson's partner here. I met some of the wealthiest people on the planet that sometimes come in cognito and come on the show. And I follow up with a lot of them, and it's incredible the kind of conversations, whether they're from Germany or Singapore or China or wherever. So it's really expanded the universe for me. I mean, we reach out to Africa now, we reach out to Indonesia, Bangladesh, all over the EU. So it's really expanded the reach. And I mean, this is what's happened in the beginning of the pandemic. Think about it. We weren't able to communicate and be able to have that sense of community. And VCTV came in at the right place at the right time to provide that camaraderie and that, that good feeling that we're all together working through this in a place to be able to, for me, it's like a tech therapy session. I love it. Because you get on and, you learn about, I started writing about quantum computers because of VCTV. I started diving into some other areas of artificial intelligence that were quite interesting for me. So I've taken the topics. It's helped me get an overall 360-degree view of where technology is going, and it's helped me be able to write and to be able to invest and look for those kind of companies and connect.
Great.
I got now 370 VCs that I deal with directly. On a regular basis, I have about 160 some that I'm talking to, on and off. I have many, many calls every day, but a lot of them are from VCTV, and it's a lot of fun. What can I say? It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to find incredible companies. And
Excellent. Awesome. Did you just say it's a tech therapy? Sorry.
It's like tech therapy. I mean, it's like great. It's like I come in, I feel like an addict. I come in here in the morning and it's like I need to get my juice in the morning, It's like a cup of coffee. I mean, it's amazing. It's good.
Exactly. Talking about impact. This is VCTV's impact.
Yeah. VCTV has a great impact.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gary, for those closing remarks. Really feels good because I'm a part of VCTV myself. I moderate these panels. Just imagine the kind of information I get to receive, as Gary rightly said. Is I can't miss those sessions. There's so much. Like, I'm an addict as well. I have to confess on VCTV tonight. Like, I can't miss these sessions myself. So thank you so much again. We come to the end of the session, slightly overrun in time, but it's okay. No worries. So I am back Monday to Friday on different topics, and speakers like yourself, you want to contribute, because I really enjoyed the session today. If you would like to contribute more on different topics, please feel free to reach out to me and Carol, and we're always going to place you on different panels. Again, viewers, founders, entrepreneurs, investors who like to share the space with other speakers and investors today. As you rightly said, these people really looking forward to have more and more. They're going to increase their network and have people who can share the same knowledge, speak the same language. Please feel free to do so as well. We're happy to have you on board on VCTV. Having said that, thank you again very much for your time. Let's all stay connected through VCTV, but also stay safe. And have a great day. Have a great evening.